Upwards of 1.3 billion people across the globe currently lack access to affordable and reliable electricity, with dramatic consequences for human health, education, and economic well-being. The prize, through its growing community of winners and finalists, has been helping climate victims find empowerment and the means to make their lives better through innovative approaches. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Han Sun-Soo, UN Secretary General Special Envoy for Disaster Risk Reduction and Water, the Vice Chair of the jury with Zayed Energy Prize, to deliver a keynote speech with us. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
I'd like to thank Mastar for their kind invitation. Before I proceed further, I'd like to take a moment here to commend the leadership of the United Arab Emirates for their vision in tackling the challenge of climate change by recognizing and rewarding excellence in renewable energy and sustainability. It is a very fitting tribute to name this award in the memory of His Highness Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the late founding father of the United Arab Emirates and Emir of Abu Dhabi. His commitment to social, economic, and environmental sustainability is engraved in the DNA of the United Arab Emirates and resonates well with all of us. In this respect, it is particularly noteworthy that Masdar in Abu Dhabi has been in the forefront of energy innovation over the years, investing, incubating, and establishing a new energy industry, showing energy leadership beyond the hydrocarbons. At the same time, the Zayed Future Energy Prize has been playing an important role in enabling and empowering those innovators who strive hard to bring about a sustainable future through clean energy development. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is one of the greatest challenges of our time. Its adverse impact on global temperature and sea level rise and increasing volatility of weather patterns are putting the biological life support systems of our planet at risk. Such a global mean temperature and sea level rise will have a side-ranging impact on life-supporting ecosystem through increasing extreme climate-related events such as droughts, floods, typhoons, cyclones, heat waves, wildfires, ocean acidification, that will in turn adversely affect agriculture, food, and water security. Although damages from the ongoing climate change are huge and daunting, the real challenge is still to come. The fifth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, warned us that continued emission of greenhouse gases will cause further warming and increase the likelihood of severe, pervasive, and reversible impact for people and ecosystems. The fifth assessment report translated this warning into an easy arithmetic equation. In order to limit total human-induced warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century, the cumulative CO2 emissions have to remain below about 2,900 gigatons. About 1,900 gigatons CO2 had already been emitted by 2011 since 1870, at the time of the first industrial revolution. This means that the remaining carbon budget is about 1,000 gigatons. As global CO2 emission was about 49 gigatons in 2010, with a global annual growth rate of 2.2%, we have less than 20 years before we run out of our carbon budget. This is a stark reality we have to face. This is truly a sobering prospect and a serious wake-up call. The challenging question from this baseline scenario is whether sufficient carbon space could be reserved to accommodate rapid economic growth necessary to pursue the recently adopted Sustainable Development Goals. Unlike many other sectoral environmental issues such as biodiversity, ozone layer, endangered species, forests, and oceans, The adverse impact of climate change is cross-cutting the whole spectrum of socio-economic development issues. Equity and fairness considerations make it even more difficult to build a consensus among countries at different stages of development. In fact, the political issue of equality and fairness proved to be far more difficult than technical issues of mitigation and adaptation. Ladies and gentlemen, now, however, let me try to present the bright side of my story, namely the vision and the strategy for low-carbon future that could underpin the sustainable development goals. The world leaders, as you may know, were gathered together in Paris in December last year to put the final piece in the puzzle to ensure real sustainability in our development efforts. The Paris Agreement is a victory for climate change and multilateralism. It is ambitious and balanced. It sends a clear signal that the transformation of global economy in a low-carbon climate resilient direction is already underway and accelerating. We have opened a new era of opportunity for all with this agreement. On behalf of all of us at the United Nations, I commend you for the constructive role played by the United Arab Emirates in supporting this process. The Paris Agreement, for the first time, brings all nations into a common cause based on their historic, current, and future responsibilities. This universal agreement aims to keep a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius and to the extent possible, that is to the extent possible 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. To reach these ambitious and important goals, appropriate financial flows will have to be put in place, thus making strong action by developing countries and the most vulnerable possible, in line with their own national objectives. Needless to say, there is still much work to be done to put this agreement into action, but the fact is that we, the people of the world, have spoken and taken a ground-breaking decision on what type of future we want for our next generations. In short, the tide has already been turned as 2015 delivered what it promised to be an entire paradigm shift to make our world more secure, fair, and sustainable for many generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, in light of all these agreements, it is becoming once again clear that integrated approaches to sustainable development are fundamental for our future. For instance, addressing water and disaster risk reduction in tandem and not in silos is essential for combating climate change. As we all believe, investment in climate resilience can save lives and help avoid the destruction of vital infrastructure. Renewable energy is also the other side of the coin. Hence, we need a holistic approach to economic growth and sustainable development. Energy from renewable resources, wind, water, and sun, biomass, and geothermal energy is inexhaustible and clean. For the time being, renewable energy currently constitutes 15% of the global energy mix. However, renewable energy products and services constitute a rapidly growing segment of the international marketplace. For instance, investment in electricity from the wind, sun, waves, and biomass grew to $187 billion last year, compared with $157 billion for natural gas, oil, and coal. Total new investment in clean energy more than doubled over the last 5 years, reaching $260 billion in 2011. What makes renewable energy an economically viable proposition is the fact that the cost of technologies to capture that energy are rapidly falling and becoming economically competitive with fossil fuels while reducing the risk of climate change. Investing in renewable energy creates jobs, fosters cutting-edge innovation, and thereby economic growth, while at the same time improving energy security for countries that are not endowed with domestic fossil fuel resources. Furthermore, increasing the share of renewable energy in the total energy mix can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and local pollution, smoothen out shocks due to price volatility, and improve those countries' balance payments. According to the recent estimate, global energy demand will increase by 33% from 2010 to 2035. It is imperative that renewables should make up much larger percentage of this energy mix by then. To that effect, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he also said this yesterday, set out the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. One of the key tenets of this initiative is to double the percentage of renewables in the total energy mix by 2030. This is an ambitious objective, but the Secretary General has called on all sectors of society, government, corporations, and individuals to work tirelessly toward achieving this. Indeed, hydro, geothermal, and bioenergy have long been competitive where resources are available, and wind and solar are also economically attractive in many locations. For as long as it is supported by strong enabling policies at the public level and robust investment from the private sector, renewable energy would supply a much larger share of the world's energy by 2030. I think Master is playing that role very well at this juncture. If all of this sounds somewhat utopian, let me dispel that illusion immediately by citing a few examples which show that doubling the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix is achievable. For example, countries with abundant biomass resources like Sweden and Brazil now get 50% of their energy from renewable resources. Harnessing the opportunities of wind power, Denmark now derives some 20% of its total energy from renewable resources. In Bangladesh, more than 500,000 solar home systems were installed in just 3 years. Uganda has diversified its renewable energy mix by increasing the amount of renewable energy in the pipeline by 60%. The challenge of increasing the use of renewable energy is significant. The opportunities are great to see economic growth, new markets, sustainable and equitable development, and a cleaner planet are within world's reach by 2030. Those who act now to improve renewable energy are creating the future we want. It is against this background that the leadership of the United Arab Emirates gains an even deeper meaning. Viable solutions and political will are all out there. Science and technology is already providing us with the tools that we need. Both the Universal Agreement, launched this year by the United Nations member states, and the grassroots initiative that countries including UAE undertake all point in the same direction. I look forward to continue to work with you for a prosperous world where no one is left behind. Once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to UAE leadership for their vision and action on renewable energy and sustainable development to secure a bright and prosperous future for the people and our planet. Ladies and gentlemen, in this respect, I think we need a fundamental change of the growth paradigm for the next few generations, from so-called quantitative growth to qualitative growth, from so-called brown growth to green growth. In other words, we needed to shift the focus of our policy making from the short-term quantities of GDP maximization towards improvement of long-term economic, social, and environmental qualities of growth. The traditional production model of GDP growth forces us to exploit human and natural capital, the very foundation of sustainable development, for the maximization of short-term quantity, that is GDP. It is quite interesting and noteworthy that after the financial crisis of 2008, the government that traditionally regarded spending in green as a burden and cost to the economy suddenly started resorting to green as a driver of vibrant economic growth, creating jobs. Korea is one of the cases. In March 2009, UNEP, United Nations Development Program, came up with a recommendation to the government in its policy brief on global Green New Deal to invest, I quote, 1% of GDP over the next 2 years, which could provide the critical mass of green investment needed to reduce carbon dependency and to see significant green growth in our economy, unquote. Many governments initiated ambitious program of green investment since then. Investing in human and natural capital by focusing on the long-term quality of growth rather than exploiting them in order to maximize the short-term quantity of growth is the surest way of balanced integration of economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. Fortunately, green growth was brought into center stage of global economic recovery, though, albeit briefly, in the aftermath of the financial crisis of 2008. The new economy report of 2014, titled Better Growth, Better Climate, published by the Global Commission on Economy and Climate, clarified that there is a perception that there is a trade-off in the short to medium term between economic growth and climate action, but this is due largely to misconception that economies are static, unchanging, and perfectly efficient. And the reform or policy which forces an economy to deviate from this counterfactual incurs a trade-off for cost, so any climate policy often found to impose large, short, and medium-term costs. In reality, however, many of the perceived net costs can be reduced or eliminated. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you a complete example that shows how all these interrelated concepts can work together. Korea initiated low-carbon green growth vision of 2008 when I was Prime Minister. It was probably one of the few systematic attempts to jumpstart the low-carbon transformation that can sustain economic growth while coping with the climate crisis. This unique Korean vision immediately put through in the right direction as G20 endorsed Green New Deal and many governments came up with green investment programs to drive economic growth and job creation to cope with the global economic slowdown from the financial crisis of 2008. When I served as the chair of the OECD Ministerial Council meeting in Paris in 2009, I was able to garner the unanimous support of the minister delegates to pass a resolution on declaration of green growth on 25th of June 2009. Based on this resolution, OECD carried out a 2-year in-depth study on the paradigm shift and published a monumental document towards green growth on the occasion of its 50th anniversary in 2011. The document has become a foundation for green growth program of the OECD countries. Critical drivers of the green growth initiative in Korea were strong political leadership and focused policy direction. Looking back, I feel privileged to have personally engaged in designing and promoting green growth as a new national vision for Korea and presenting it as part of the global agenda for the low-carbon future of the world. Though I did my part in trailblazing the low-carbon transformation agenda, starting from Korea and then around the world, it still remains largely an unfinished work. I hope the experiment of green growth can be a source of inspiration for others to learn lessons from and move on to realize the vision of the low-carbon world. We are constantly reminded that the window of opportunity is closing fast. The new climate economy report of 2014 pointed out that, I quote, "We live in a moment of great opportunity and great risk. The next 15 years will be critical as the global economy undergoes a deep structural transformation that will determine the future of the world's climate system." We are fortunate enough to have the necessary capital and vast potential for technological innovation. What is needed is political commitment and consistent and credible policy framework that could mobilize financial resources and upscale technological innovations for low-carbon future. We could either realize the opportunity low-carbon future or suffer from final climate impact. The choice is in our hands. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this honor to speak to you. My name is Divine Tawa. I teach youth from rural village how to install solar photovoltaic to make electricity from the sun at the Zayed Solar Academy. Zayed Solar Academy is located in northern Malawi. It is the first solar academy in Africa. The Zayed Future Energy Prize made this possible, and the people of Malawi will be forever grateful. I'm now 22 years old, and I was raised in a remote village. by a poor single mother. I was the first one in my village to attend secondary school. Malawi is one of the poorest countries and one of the least developed countries in the world. A family of six live on $1 a day. We in Africa are already feeling the devastating effects of climate change, droughts, floods, and famine. These effects are magnified by energy poverty. Less than 1% of people living in the rural area have access to electricity. This is how we study and read at night in Malawi. This is what women take to the hospitals at their time to deliver their baby, so that the doctor can see. Many children are abandoned by fires caused by kerosene and candles. Women and children cough so hard that they cough blood because of the toxic smoke and fumes from kerosene. This is energy poverty. This is our reality. This is also our reality in Malawi. A youth is rushed to the hospital with an injured arm. His arm is imputed rather than repaired because the doctor cannot operate because there was no electricity that day because of power outage for the third time at that week. Hydroelectricity available in urban areas is about 66% capacity because of low water levels in lakes and rivers. The resulting of load shedding means blackouts throughout the country of Malawi for homes, business and schools, but also for hospitals. This is the effects of climate change. This is our reality. Many children go hungry. The seasons have changed, and rain does not come to grow our maize. Last year, torrential rains lasting 7 hours flooded our fields, destroying our crops, roads, houses, and even the whole village. About 176 people died. Many went hungry. Lack of food will be our reality. This is the effect of climate change. This is our reality. A child is injured by the water flooding her village. A child dies because her parents could not call for help because their phone has lost power and their village has no access to electricity. This is the effects of climate change. This is energy poverty. This is our reality. Energy innovation can make a difference. In Africa, we need access to energy. In most cases, this is electricity for the first time. You understand how important access to energy is when you see men and women crying in wonderment. Because it's the first time to see the artificial light. People cannot afford a big system. They need to start with a small affordable components, which they can add it on it. For example, a DC connector originated made for cars, which enables to charge phones or a tablet, or a tablet like this one. direct from a solar panel, like this one. We have introduced these tablets to Malawi. They are affordable, and in combination with this small solar panel means that students in remote areas can study at home. They can download a lot of books, can do a lot of things on internet while they are in their remote areas. The Zayed Solar Academy is making solar energy in Malawi a reality by harnessing such innovations and by training village youth, both men and women, as a rural solar engineers. Our 9-month program teaches them to design, install, maintain, and repair systems. They also learn electrical installation, welding, and electronics, with an addition in ICT and business skills. We are now in our second year and about to start our third class of students. There is much potential with solar energy. I can study at night, sometimes later than I'm supposed to. The internet is incredible for research. My dream is to get an advanced degree in renewable energy. And with the internet, I know I can achieve my goal. I have gone from this to this. We at the Zayed Solar Academy hope to bring light and technology to remote village throughout Malawi, and with your help, bring light to our region of Africa and the rest of the continent. Climate change is a problem for the whole world, but we in Africa are the true victims of climate change. Droughts, floods, and famine are our reality, and will be the reality of our future. We at the Zayed Solar Academy believe that solar energy can help to make our country more resilient to the effects of climate change and eliminating energy poverty. Access to energy poverty is vital for development in Africa. Energy will determine Africa's ability to achieve its full potential and improve lives. We believe solar off-grid, green energy can eradicate energy poverty. We believe we can change our reality. On behalf of the Zayed Solar Academy and the community, I would like to thank the late Sheikh Zayed for his brilliant vision, the royal family, and the Zayed Future Energy Prize for the award we won in 2014 to create the Zayed Solar Academy in Malawi. Thanks.
I'd now like to invite our moderator, Michael Liebrich, Chairman of the Advisory Board, Bloomberg New Energy Finance.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'd like to thank our speakers so far. Dr. Han has been a tremendous voice, and I think you heard some of the nuanced understanding of how we're going to make this transition. And the Green Growth Initiatives, the work on that has not been in any way forgotten. It's actually underpinning a lot of what we see here. We saw it run up to Paris. So I would also extend my thanks for the work, not just the speech, but also the work that underlay the speech. And then Tigrani, I mean, this is just an extraordinary story, and I'd like to thank you for coming and sharing it with us, because it's too easy for somebody like me to spend all my time in the conference centres talking about stuff, and it's great to see the example and to hear that it's being taken forward on the ground and it's actually changing lives. I will always remember your bundle of candles, and I'd like to think that that in, I don't know what the right number is, 5 years or whatever the right number is, as soon as possible, no woman should have to give birth in a clinic where there isn't light, so that the medical staff can intervene appropriately if there's a problem, and no child should have to study with a candle, breathing in or a kerosene lantern. So we've got a discussion, a panel here, and this is organised by the Zayed Future Energy Prize team. And I think, actually, before we start, how many people here have been finalists or winners, let's do first, in the Zayed Future Energy Prize? Hands up, everybody who's been a finalist. Look at this. This is absolutely, so, I mean, they're talking about preaching to the converted. How many people have been winners? Winners. Well, I think everybody who gets even as far as the finalists has really been, it's a huge achievement. And so, I feel bad that you can't all be winners, but it's great to have all of you here. I mean, my own involvement, I was on the selection panel for 2 years at the beginning, and then since then, Bloomberg New Energy Finance has been supporting the Zayed Future Energy Prize process, and I've had the privilege of helping to moderate the jury discussions with the jury that Dr. Han was the vice chairman of. And I can tell you it's been one of the highlights of my last few years, because you do see this incredible stream of innovation and leadership, and the leadership shown in each of the organisations. They didn't just happen. Somebody got up in the morning and said, I'm going to drop what we've got. Actually, our first Zayed Future Energy Prize winner, Tibal Barra, one day he said, I'm not going to do my normal job. I'm going to strike out in this direction, and I'm going to build this organisation that's going to bring energy to, in his case, Bangladesh. Similar situations of people living without light in Bangladesh. And finally, before we start the panel, just so we all have one figure in mind, which I picked up from some of the literature, I think yesterday, the Zayed Future Energy Prize winners, the winners alone, let alone the finalists, have already improved the lives of over 200 million people. So 2.5 billion that are cooking on traditional biomass, and 1.2 billion that don't have electricity. So there's plenty. Don't worry, anybody else thinking of applying again if you haven't won yet, there's plenty more to do, but 200 million impacts already is really substantial. So this is a huge initiative, a very important one. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to call up to the stage my panelists. There's Norman Al-Hani, who's the Senior Business Development Director at Vestas. Just choose whichever, if you can match yourself to your names, unless you want to masquerade as our next panelist. Cesar Mwangi, who's the COO, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, of Sunny Money, who has been a finalist twice, so we're going to hear all about Sunny Money. It had a huge impact on lives in Africa, and I want to hear that story. Ami Valdemoro, CEO of Liter of Light. So can you just, I'm so sorry, I should have done this before, but it's Amy? Ami, very good, Ami, thank you very much. And Ava Wojkowska, who's the co-founder and COO of one of this year's winners, Copenhagen. So let's give an introductory round of applause to our panel. Thank you.
So first, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for attending this session today. I also want to thank the team of Zayed Future Energy team to invite us to speak during this important week for all of us. Basically, I just want to give maybe a few figures about Vestas. And the beginning, Vestas is the world leader in wind power generation. We have around 75 giga of wind installed globally, and around 54,000 wind turbines installed all over the world. I am in charge of business development covering Middle East region. And to go specifically to Zayed Prize and the impact it had on us since we won it 5 years before in 2011. I'll give you a few numbers, and then you will realize how important is this prize and the impact of this prize on our operation. Our installed base in Middle East and Africa in 2011 was only 150 megawatts in Middle East and in Africa. And today we have 1.1 giga of wind installed in Middle East and in Africa. Few examples of this project: we have Lake Lake Turkana in Kenya. It is 310 megawatts of wind, the largest wind project in Africa. And also in Jordan, it was inaugurated in December by His Majesty the King of Jordan. In Bafila, 117 megawatts of wind. So what I want to say, it's not just a prize where it is a recognition to innovation and new technologies. It's really also a market enabler to enable the companies and the organization to do more business, to spread. It's a good platform to spread the new technology and awareness, let's say, about the technologies. Some of the technologies are not new, like in wind. Wind is there for the last 35 years in mature markets in Europe. But because of initiatives like Zayed Prize, we were able to spread in Middle East and in Africa all the new technologies. And this is one of the main, let's say, advantages we can see. And maybe this is a good example for the new winners who won recently. You can really use it to spread your technology in the market worldwide and in Africa and in East Asia.
Thank you very much. Tell us also, if you could, a little bit about how the developing world, how developing countries, how important are they? 'Cause a few years ago, I participated in the launch of Winds for Change, which was about repowering and then using some of the turbines that were used, but then now have been superseded in scale and so on.
Sure.
Has that been a successful program? How do you, or maybe, I don't want to prejudge, but what's your strategy for really kind of going not just 10x, but the next 10x in the developing world?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the word of alternative energy to renewable is not valid anymore. It's a mainstream. I mean, in 2014, if you see the new installed base during 2014, 15% of it was contributed through renewables. So now if I talk specifically about wind, wind is first now cost competitive. I mean, we are in US, for example, if you want to talk about mature markets, and in Europe, where wind is cheaper than coal and gas-fired power plants. Currently, as an installed base of wind globally, it is 3%, which comes around 370 giga installed worldwide. But and we are forecasting by 2020 to reach around 9% of the global production will be wind, and by 2030 around 20%. So I think the future is very bright for renewables. It's becoming more and more the main contributor to the increase of demand for power globally. It's not anymore an alternative. It's really, and we see it not only as Vestas being a technology leader and a supplier of turbines, but even the developers. If you see the big developers now, like NG, GDF Suez, like Enel, like EDF, now they are shifting totally their business to renewables, from conventional to renewables. It's their main area where they are concentrating. Now, challenges, yes. I mean, it will not, I don't want to sound that everything is easy. Specifically for wind, there are certain challenges. Wind is site-specific, so we need to really have a good site where it can produce good energy. Grid connection, this is one of the, maybe, I don't want to call it disadvantages, but one of the limitations which wind has. We need grid connection. It's not like solar, because solar is more, you can scale down solar to off-grid.
Well, that's a great point to hand over to, or to bring in Caesar. You're obviously working on solar.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of Sunny Money, and also then your involvement with the Zayed Future Energy Drive.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, I'm so delighted that this young man from Malawi has actually highlighted the reality on the ground in Africa. Because Sunny Money operates in 5 African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, and Zambia. And what he said was the reality on the ground. Many people do not have access to lighting simply because there's no grid and there's enormous poverty right there and they have no options. So Sunny Money, which is the social enterprise of Solar Aid, was set up about 4 to 5 years ago, specifically with a big, hairy, audacious goal, which simply stated that we would like to eliminate the kerosene lamp from Africa. And we're going to do that by distributing solar lights, Pico solar lights, affordable Pico solar lights, to the bottom of the pyramid, the last mile. Okay? And that has been the adventure of the last 5 years. That's what we've been doing. And in the process of doing that, we've actually distributed in excess, presently, 1.8 million solar lights in those countries. And in the process had a huge impact in terms of extending the educational hours of children who previously could not read in the evening. And we have a research department which has carried out various measurements of our impact. I'll just mention a couple of those impacts very quickly. The families have saved, in our estimation, approximately $350 million from purchasing kerosene, just by having these 1.7, 1.8 million lights with them. They've also had children study an extra 2 billion hours out of those 1.7, 1.8 million lights. And that is a huge impact. Because if you imagine children cannot study, then it means the educational opportunities, their development in life is stunted. We've also had an impact of better health. We're about 6 million people we've reached through these lights. And of course, the gentleman from Malawi mentioned that it's terrible to have to live with the constant emissions from a candle or a kerosene light, kerosene lamp. I mean, those emissions are terrible. I have, in fact, just on a very practical level, been in very small villages. Some of you may know Kenya, the Masai Mara area where Maasais live. Their homes have very poor ventilation. And when they put on the kerosene in those little homes, they're filled with smoke. And when a newborn baby is born, 50% of their babies get infections, lung infections, lung problems, breathing problems because of this condition. So the impacts have been huge, enormous. And the final one is we've managed to avert, in our estimation, 2.5 million tons of CO2 gases because of the use of clean energy. And these are some of the impacts that we've had. But most important, we have managed to change the lives of people on the ground, as has been mentioned in the earlier presentation. That is what Sunny Money is all about. And it is, as I said, it is a social enterprise trying to work sustainably as part of Solar Aid, which is the non-profit organization.
Thank you very much. And I will move straight on to Ali Valdemoro. So Liter of Light, I mean, that started with a really low-tech solution, right? Tell us about it.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ami Valdemoro, and I am one of the directors and leaders of the Leader of Light. It's a grassroots global movement to empower local communities on how to build their own solar lights and street lights. We started off in 2011 with a very simple solution. It basically took a plastic bottle, which is ubiquitous and found everywhere in the Philippines, where the movement started. We filled it with water and a spot of bleach, put it through the rooftops of houses, and gave communities in informal settlements, at the bottom of the pyramid, a light that is equivalent to 55 watts. Since then, we have developed other modifications to the initial technology that basically use micro solar panels, a simple circuit made with a copper board, and we work with communities in these areas to build their own solar lights. So not only are we providing them with the technology that they can use that is sustainable, we're also training them on a skill that they can use down the road. So, for example, at least where this was piloted again in the Philippines, we worked with women in correctional facilities who have quite a bit of time on their hands and are looking for ways to gainfully get employment once they get out. So it's really incorporating marginalized communities in the development of these products and by doing so, empowering them not just through the lights that we provide, but also with a sense of well-being and training.
Let me ask them, because there's, all three of our panelists so far, actually, because you need the grid for the best solution. It's a grid-connected solution. For our last two panelists, there's something of a controversy where some people say, well, you shouldn't do this sort of stuff. We should be focusing all our efforts on bringing the grid to those who are not connected and on large-scale delivery of dispatchable power. In fact, dispatchable applies also to your solution. So we should be doing coal, and we should be doing nuclear, and we should be doing gas, and we shouldn't be doing this sort of stuff because it distracts from the sort of proper solution, a long-term solution. What do you say to people who make that argument? Does it have any validity? Any of you who wants to take that?
Yeah, maybe I'll say a few words.
Yeah.
Why not doing both?
Right.
Yeah. I think the solution is there is no quick and easy fix to the problems. You need time to develop a grid. You need time to develop these projects. Now, renewable energy, just for your information, has the shortest lead time when it comes to, let's say, utility scale for solar as well as for wind. For wind, it is 16 months. We can put, Tafila, 117 megawatts in 16 months, and the bottleneck was the grid connection, not the turbines. The turbines was there 9 months after signing the contract. So I think it's both solution. You need a quick solution for the problem, and then you work on the long-term.
But on the distributed solution, there are people who say it's a waste of money because the grid will arrive. You should put the money in the grid.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That argument has come up, and really, if you look at that argument, it's not practical. Okay, delivering a solar light to a family is very simple. It's available, it's delivered, and they have light immediately. Now we've got all sorts of lead times if you have to bring the grid along and all that. Meanwhile, the child has to study every day. There's a real demand, there's a real need, and that cannot be resolved by waiting for the grid, because every day that child has to study, and every day that passes, the exams are getting closer. So there's some real practical considerations that we need to look at.
So both of you are saying it's about speed.
Yeah,
it's really about speed.
Practicality.
You want to add anything, and then I want to bring in.
Sure. I would just add a couple of things to that. One is around the sense of urgency, and I would bring up two cases in particular. Again, referencing the Philippines, where I'm from, and as the gentleman from Malawi mentioned in his remarks earlier, we are at the forefront of climate change, and climate change is not going to wait for a grid to be installed in a place where there's no electricity. The urgent and dire need to come up with our own solutions is real and it's critical. The other example that I would bring up is some of the work that we've done, thanks again, to being a recipient of last year's Zayed Future Energy Prize. We were the winners in the nonprofit category. And since then, we've been able to connect with groups who are interested in, again, providing urgent solutions to communities with dire needs. And the example that I'll give is one of the refugee camps that we've been working with in Ethiopia and in Pakistan. Basically, what we do is we go there and we train the folks who are living in those camps how to build their own lights. We set up corridors of lighting, and we've been able to reduce violence and crime against women who are working in those refugee camps by a significant amount. So, again, I would think, I agree that we need both solutions, but I don't think that one has to come at the expense of the other.
No, you are right.
And in general, I wonder if there's a rule that the further away people live from these situations, the more likely they are to support only grid-connected, centralized solutions. I wonder if somebody could write a PhD thesis on that. I want to bring in Eva, because you mentioned, that you were the winner of the non-profit last year, and Eva, congratulations to the winner this year. Very well done. So tell us what you did to be the winner and what you think it might mean to you.
Thank you. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Copernic. We're an Indonesia-based organization, and we distribute simple clean energy technologies to remote last-mile communities. So we focus specifically on those underserved, unreached areas where people just don't have access to clean water or energy at all. We have a network of entrepreneurs, most of whom are women, who sell these technologies in their communities. We call them Wonder Women. They're Wonder Women because they're really superheroes in their villages, bringing clean light and clean energy where it hasn't existed before. Winning the prize is, I was saying to you earlier, Michael, that it's a game changer for us. We're a fairly young, still fairly small organisation compared to some of the others, but this means that we're going to be able to scale, that we're going to be able to invest in improving our distribution model, that we're going to be able to add new technologies to better serve the needs of the people that we're serving. So it's a tremendous honour, and yeah, we're absolutely delighted. And if I can just add one thing to the discussion about grid versus
Distributed.
Off-grid. We might be waiting a long time, and the places that we work, there's just no way that the grid is coming anytime soon. It hasn't been there for the last 30 years, and it's probably not going to be there in the next 20. So we'll be really happy when the grid does arrive, and we'll happily say, right, job done, but it's not going to happen for a while.
I suspect it doesn't work like that, because what we actually see is that those areas that are near the existing, generally urban centres, industrial centres, where there is grid, those will build out, but the very rural areas may never see a grid. They may end up moving straight to mini grids or distributed solutions. But even where there is a grid, and this is particularly we've seen in India, lots of people can't afford to buy from it. And so you'll see that in the numbers you tick off that village and say it's got grid, but actually either there are brownouts, blackouts, or people can't afford to use it. So there's definitely, the answer is both.
Just maybe one comment. Solving the grid issue could be part of the utility scale project. For example, in Lake Turkana project, we had to construct 100 kilometers of overhead line, part of the wind farm. So, I mean, it could be a solution of combining a number of technologies, basically, in order to get electricity reach to remote areas.
I mean, question for you. You won in 2015, which means the beginning of 2000. You've now 1 year on your belt as a winner. Have you found that it helps you, when you go and talk to a minister, when you go and talk to a big corporate partner, does it help the fact that you've been a Zayed Future Enterprise winner?
Absolutely. I think some of you might have seen the video that was shown about our project and the impact that we've made yesterday during the opening ceremony. But I mean, the contributions and partnership of the Zayed Future Energy Prize have been immeasurable in terms of linking us to potential partners, providing us with the credibility as an institution to be able to go to partners like UNHCR or any other entities and to work with them on our project to bring solar lights to thousands and millions of people around the world. We basically were able to go to 10 additional countries, to grow our movement to 10 additional countries, and the multiplier effects of that, you multiply that by the thousands of people who we've been able to work with and train on building streetlights that serve, hundreds of thousands of people in their community. I mean, it's hard to quantify the sort of contribution and partnership that has come out of this.
So I know that's year after year as I'm trying to help the process along. There's a lot of discussion about using the winners and the finalists as a network to go out and spread the message, also to get more applicants for each year, because that's very important. Noman, have you been involved in any of those specific activities yet in your role here in the region?
Well, since 5 years, the projects which we were able to link it in a way or another to Zayed, the prize. An example is Tafila project, because Tafila, as you may know, Mazda, it was the developer. Exactly for this. So, as mentioned by my colleague, basically the prize will it will be a platform for you to communicate with. It works two ways actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one way is from the utilities, the organization, the countries, the governmental entities will start to recognize basically the technology and the solution you are providing. But in the same time, it will make you focus. I mean, for example, Vestas was very happy doing business in Europe and in the US, and they were doing their targets. But after this prize, they started to look into Africa and Middle East more seriously, so it's two ways.
So the expectations rise as well.
Yeah, and my position in the company was one of the, I mean, to develop the business in Middle East and United States.
All of this is music to my ears, and I'm sure those from the prize organisation will be very pleased as well, because you know, there is a really, and we saw it from the number of hands that were in the air at the beginning, there's a really interesting alumni network that's building up here. And I think that the interesting thing about alumni networks is that their value grows as the square of the number of people, so that they don't just grow linearly over time, they actually go like this. So when Deepak Barua won, there was no net. He was the network. He was the winner. That was all there was. But now, over the time, there have been now dozens of people who've been through the doors. And I think that one of the things that we'll take away is all of those of us who are in any way involved, how best to activate that network. And this is what today is actually part of that. It's about learning from the experiences. And then, Ava, you're the sort of the latest one up here. So I hope you realise that you've now joined a club, and the club has rights and the club has responsibilities. I'm sure you're a fine new member of that club. What I'll do is, I think, open it up to the floor, and what would be, I think what we should be thinking about is how do we take this to the next level? Okay, there's the network and so on, but what are the challenges and anything that we've missed in the contributions from the panelists? Anybody wants to? Let's try and how shall I do this? It either has to be a question, or if somebody wants to make a statement, it has to be really, really, really short. Okay, so there's two rules: either a question, but the question has to be short as well. So who wants to go first? Who has either a question or a short point to make? Jonathan, and you should introduce yourself because you've been one of the pioneers and leaders of this process right from the start, from when I served under your chairmanship on the selection panel.
Jonathan Porritt. I've been involved in the prize since
There's a microphone coming round to you there.
My name is Jonathan Porritt. I've been involved in the prize since the first year on the selection committee. I have a question for all of our colleagues, apart from our Vestas colleague, and I'm thinking here about the Philippines, Indonesia, and some of the governments in Africa that Sunny Money is working with. None of you mentioned politics. None of you mentioned political processes. None of you talked about regulation, legislation, incentivization, subsidy schemes, and all the rest of it. Have the politicians just become entirely irrelevant to this total revolution?
That's a great question. Great question. Who wants to go first? Are you doing what you're doing with help of politicians or despite politicians? I'm paraphrasing. Yes, Cesar, go ahead.
Maybe I can mention, I think the politicians have not been totally apathetic to this whole process. And in fact, these are very good examples of duty waivers in some of the African countries where solar products are coming in duty-free, and this has made them much more affordable. And that is very specific in Kenya especially, where the politicians have been very supportive. So it's a question of really engaging the politicians, and they are very progressive politicians in some countries, I must say, while others not really so keen. So we cannot say it is a blanket ignorance or apathy from politicians. There is engagement ongoing, and I think it is beginning some fruits.
What about the Philippines? I met actually a Philippines energy minister about 4 or 5 years ago, and I tried to say there is a revolution in distributed solutions, and you need to enable it. And he was very focused on the grid. I have to be honest. But have you found the politicians helpful or a hindrance?
I think you had made a comment earlier about the fact that even if you consider communities to be on grid, there are a number of them who can't actually afford the electricity that comes from the grid. I think part of that is because of the lack of regulation, but I think part of it is also because the reality in which we're operating in the Philippines, and I imagine some of the 20 countries that we work in, is that there's pilferage of funds. And, there's a sort of
So can you say that again? Make sure everybody understands what you're talking about. Pilferage of funds.
So
I'll say
it's not, you have a baseline for how much you have to pay for energy.
Yeah.
That could be inflated because of regulations within the government, or it could be inflated because it has to do with the local government who's providing the electricity to you. And that is a reality that's very apparent in the Philippines. And I think it also has to do with, a sense of urgency. I mean, we can't wait for the politicians to come around and decide that this is what's important to them. And that could be the case with a number of different issues. And I don't think it's just unique to the Philippines. I think that happens everywhere. The sense of urgency tends to be elevated when elections are happening. So I don't think that we can afford to be held hostage by this cyclical nature of government and policy. Having said that, there are local governments who are champions of sustainable energy and will work with us to empower their communities. So I wouldn't just make a sort of blanket statement that it's not that we can't work with politicians. It's just rather a case-by-case basis.
Interesting, and I don't want to belabor the point. I think it was very interesting that you raised about the pilferage, because I don't think we talk enough about corruption when we talk about the shift to clean energy and we talk about different countries. I just think it's an issue that in our space a lot of people are not very comfortable talking about. And it may not be corruption in the sense of an actual payment. It could just be that large-scale, centralized, the old incumbents have got a pretty nice system going of political donations. They're tending to be, they go to the same schools. It's a system that works. It works for everybody. And so anything that then is a different system and a different architecture, even the wind farm is a smaller project than a major coal-fired power station, and so therefore just the sort of there are fewer beneficiaries of a project at that scale. So I worry about that. I don't know if anybody wants to comment, or we can move on. But it's certainly, I think, is an issue that we need as an industry or as a sector to probably be more upfront about discussing.
Yeah. Can I just comment?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. In fact, you're absolutely right that there are, of course, the well-connected political networks do benefit from the larger projects, and we some operate below the radar. Because there is no benefits to be gained from the good work that we do. So you will not find sometimes direct support. There is one country, for example, I know in Africa, where they want to put up a nuclear power plant because we need energy in that country. But a nuclear power plant, well, if you just went and helped finance solar, we're much more effective. Yeah. For example, but there's some partners who will come on board, and there's something for everybody. And the elections are coming up, because these are things that keep happening in Africa, and I guess in other countries. So those things do happen. So we operate below the radar, and maybe in that way we are a little bit unnoticed. But the impact is right on the people on the ground, and the work continues.
So we're doing, don't worry, I mean, it's not just Africa. So in the UK, I'm pro-nuclear, which of course Jonathan will disagree with me on, but we're about to spend £24 billion on nuclear, when there's almost any solution you put off the shelf could probably provide the same benefits at some fraction of the price. I don't quite understand, genuinely don't understand why you're doing that. But anyway, moving on. Sorry, you're
No, just maybe a comment. Seeing that the authorities are not very responsive, from our experience, the main contributor to this is their knowledge about the benefits, and because the government system is there for 30, 40 years. They are comfortable with certain technology. They don't want to change, so it's a resistance to change. We need to push. I mean, part of our role is to educate and push and show them. Now, for example, I go back to the example of Tafila in Jordan. This is for us a showcase. I cannot tell you, maybe around 40 clients we invited from Middle East and Africa to come and see this showcase and show them that it works.
And I did some work on Rwanda in 2013 or 14, and on how they could really leapfrog to massive amounts of solar, and their national energy plan had something like 0.5% solar, and I said, it's ridiculous. And the big problem was that the local the energy players, they all thought solar would be 30 or 40 cents per kilowatt hour. And I was trying to say, no, it's 11, 12, 13. And they simply said, we don't believe you. It was as simple as that. And that was end of discussion then. And then it starts to move with better information. Let's take another question. So, you've got the microphone.
Yep, I'm Zachary Shahan, editor of Sustainavate and director of Clean Technica. I wrote an article last year for the Economist Group about the growth of telecom towers and their widespread existence across the developing world. And it was about the potential to combine solar and microgrids with these telecom towers so that you can enter into these difficult markets with a big client that makes it worthwhile for you. So I'm wondering how much you guys have thought about this or are doing this, partnering with telecom towers, for example, or just any big clients, because I imagine it's not easy to get into these parts of the world in some cases and be commercially successful.
So has anybody got experience? Cesar, go ahead.
Yeah, we are actually looking, you see, when we're trying to reach people, we've realized that we've got to look for partnerships. And partnerships are important because some of the locations are very far out. And of course, some of these big organizations, they could be power companies, they could be telecom companies, they are ideal partners because they are out there and you can partner with them, and we are currently exploring those possibilities and having discussions. Even right in this particular Sustainability Week, we had a meeting with one of the big power companies that has got 3 sites in Africa, and they're looking at partnering with us as a partner. That's exactly what you said. Yeah. So there's potential for that, but we've got to be innovative in thinking, how can we get out? Because we cannot be everywhere. Now, if there are people who are out there and they see the need, they see the possibilities, some of them are very keen also to build relationships with the communities out there, and they see us as a logical partner, and they can work with us. So we're already having discussions on this particular issue.
Okay.
So for us, I think we are constantly looking at ways to innovate and feeding back with the communities that we're working with. If you think of the plastic bottle filled with water and bleach as version 1.0 of Leader of Light, the sort of micro solar and street lights as version 2.0. Version 3.0, which we're still piloting but have yet to bring to scale, is around, again, using partners and using particularly the street lights as places to charge cell phones, as potential mosquito detractors, for mosquito killers, as well as potentially using them as hubs for distributing internet connections within the community. So it is something that we're thinking about. We haven't gotten past our sort of pilot phase yet, but we are constantly as well thinking about how to innovate and how to respond to the additional needs of the communities that we're working with. Because once you have light, the possibilities and permutations for what you do with that are endless.
For us also, partnerships are critical. We piggyback and leverage companies and community organizations to be able to distribute more technologies. In terms of working with telcos in Indonesia, we're very behind Africa in terms of mobile money. It's a really fragmented market and there are so many different players, so it's really hard to get some kind of agreement, but again, that will be a game changer for us once that's figured out.
Okay, next question. Yeah.
My name is Jenna Olson, and I'm fortunate to serve with one of the finalists of the Rural Training Center of Vanuatu. And I'm very curious maybe to take things back a little bit to the grassroots level. I was very interested in hearing some of the research on outcomes and accomplishments, and I'm also curious about gainful employment, which is mentioned as one of the tremendous benefits, let's face it, of operations and maintenance training at this level related to solar or any other renewable energy. Yet, what we're finding is in a very, very rural environment and in a developing country that, like Indonesia, has a very fragmented market in terms of how this will all be realized. Kids often receive training, seek that gainful employment, and cannot find it. Can you share any stories that you've begun to see developing at a larger scale than our humble beginnings about where kids may be going? We see creative enterprise on our side. What do you guys see?
So speaking about the context of the Philippines, I mean, the sort of technical training involved with building or becoming a solar engineer is something that we're exploring with the addition of 2 additional years of schooling within the government. So the Philippines is one of 3 countries around the world that doesn't actually have a K-12 education. This is something that is going to change this year. They're going to add grades 11 and 12. And basically the way that they've structured the curriculum is such that you've got humanities, you've got technical and vocational, which make up almost 50% of the kids who would go through those 2 levels. So at least, coming back from what I said earlier in my remarks about government, there is a recognition that there is an emerging need for technical and vocational training and support from within government structures to be able to provide that sort of environment for children to learn. It is a challenge in terms of finding partners who are able to take this trained labor. What we've found in our experience is more that the people who we've trained who want to make this into a sort of livelihood become micro-entrepreneurs. But is a reality that with that they absorb certain risk, right? And that they're not able to sort of have the infrastructure that might be available if we were to do this on a more massive scale. I did see the video on the Resilience Center, and it's actually something that I wanted to speak to you guys about. So I think it's something that we are very interested in as well.
You also, so Susan and also Eva, you're doing a lot. You said you were training as well, so maybe the 2 of you want to comment.
Right, so we have this network of women, mainly women entrepreneurs, they're sales agents. So we're helping them build up their own clean energy businesses, and we provide a suite of training to give them many tools that they need to succeed, from product knowledge, maintenance, finance, marketing, those basic tools. And we've seen increases in income, in profit of around $1,000 per year for the high performers, which is huge in Indonesia for people who are living on around $1 a day. And on average, about a 30% monthly increase in income. So it's a really promising model, and jobs are hard to come by in places like work.
Yeah. Well, in fact, this industry is so similar.
So the research that you referred to, was that your research?
Yes.
It was. So you want to just share with everybody, just to highlight what that said before continuing
Yeah,
your
I
answer?
just want to mention, because Zayed has a research department which specifically focuses on the impacts that we create in Sunny Money, the enterprise, the social enterprise. And very specifically, we have estimated that out of the 1.7 million lights which we had sold, the following impacts were noted through our research. 1, savings among families amounted to close to $350 million over the last 4 or 5 years. Children studying extra hours, we'd extrapolated that to approximately 2 billion hours of extra study time for children. We had also estimated in our research department that there were 6 million people we had reached, and of course that means that there was better health in those families, and there was, we had averted approximately 2.5 million tons of CO2. And this is very specific research that has been done. It is funded through partners, and this is what we managed. Now, if we start talking about the technical needs for managing the proliferation of solar lights, it's very similar to what happened when the mobile phone was introduced into Africa, which has grown tremendously. And you find that at the village level, there are many technicians who have developed the capacity to do basic repairs. A lot of the companies and suppliers of the lights, of course, have got warranties, and so they're able to change the lights, but there's also some basic repair work going on. I'm very delighted also to hear that in Malawi there's the Zayed Solar Academy, and in Kenya there's another institute called the Eastlands Institute of Business, of Technology, Eastlands Institute of Technology, which part of its focus is mainly to service the solar market and the people and repair of people. So it's very similar to what is happening in Zayed in Malawi. And these are the demand for education in this sector is likely to grow logically. And as it grows, it will be formalized, and there will be more people out there creating employment. So
It's an interesting point that this raises, which is there's a lot of publications about energy demand through different economic stages. I don't know. It seems to me that there'll be an opportunity, maybe somebody's done it already, to actually look at the impacts of energy or these very small amounts of distributed energy and what it actually ends up cascading through in terms of economic growth. There should now be some good case studies. I know there are lots of case studies, but they're not, I don't know of academic sort of peer-reviewed publication that says this approach to economic development works. So maybe if there's anybody who knows any professors that want to write that up, I'm sure the panelists would give plenty of case study material and maybe some of the audience as well. Another question, who else? Now I'm going to do something, I'm going to prompt the women in the audience to ask questions. Because now you're not a woman. Let's see if there's anyone who wants to ask. Here we go, there's one in the front. I'm just doing this because I'm on the advisory board of Wiser. If you haven't heard of it, please find out what it is. And we're trying to, one of the things we need to do is to make sure that the women have their voices heard, even from an audience. So go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nada. It's really tempting to invest in solar power and wind energy in locations that are difficult to reach and don't have access and all these things. But what about countries like the UAE, which have readily available electricity? Why, or what would be the incentive for leaders to take on the initiative to invest in solar power within those kinds of cities, or renewable energy in general?
Sure.
Yeah. Cameron, why did you take that?
Yeah, I'll take this question. The problem we were facing in specific, if we talk about GCC countries, is the low cost of electricity which is produced using fossil fuel and hydrocarbons. The fuel is subsidized by the governments to the producers. So wind and solar was previously not able to match the cost level of these governments and who will bridge the gap of the cost. Nobody was there, or there was no regulations in place. During the last 5 years, there was a sharp drop in the cost of energy for solar and for wind. I don't know if you have heard, but in Egypt now, it has reached 4 cents per kilowatt hour wind. And this week it was announced in Morocco, the 850 project, and it reached 3 cents per kilowatt hour for 850 megawatts of wind in Morocco. So the cost of energy is now from renewables is going dramatically down. And now we see that the numbers are making sense, and we are expecting in UAE and also in Saudi Arabia that there will be in the coming, let's say, years, a strong shift towards renewable, especially when they are also removing the subsidy on the fuel, because the governments now, and Saudi announced, UAE announced recently removing subsidy on fuel. So then, of course, it's competitive, and we can compete with other.
Just a follow-up question: how easy is it to remove everything, the infrastructure, or will they even need to remove the infrastructure of the already present?
No, you don't need to remove. Actually, you have the current installed base, and then you have the growth every year. So what's happening in the world is that, like I mentioned, in 2014, 50% of what has been added in new capacity worldwide was coming from renewables. So it's what you add. There's a growth every year. In UAE, it's like around 5% of growth which you need to add new power generation.
All I can say is those are as close to textbook answers as I've ever heard. Congratulations, that was wonderful. So I think we've got time for 2 questions. There's a woman back there, and then the gentleman that I shut down earlier because he was the wrong gender. So let's get those 2. I apologise. There we go. So you can go first. Yeah.
I'm Turunga, and I'm from Melbourne Girls College.
Which college?
Melbourne Girls College from Australia.
Were you one of the winners, or are you?
We won last year.
You won last year. Congratulations, belatedly. Very good.
My question is, we just talked about how the grid versus small-time renewable distribution methods, and we're really focusing on rural areas. Melbourne, there are lots of people, and as far as I know, we don't have a lot of renewable technology in our suburbs. Are you thinking of concentrating cities like Melbourne, cities like New York, cities like Mumbai, you know? They're large cities, they're not rural, but they're developed nations, people say, but they're very behind in renewable energy.
So I think, I mean, you probably you've been operating in those kind of informal settlements, which are basically the new cities, and then there's probably a different answer for Melbourne or New York or London, where there's already obviously grid connected supply to every house without exception. Do you want to?
Sure. So I mean, our home base is in Manila. It's a mega city of 15 million people, and we work in these off-grid communities, but that includes semi-urban and urban communities that are just completely neglected. But we've also had the opportunity to work with youth in particular in countries that don't necessarily have the same urgent energy needs, but for whom it's important to understand and learn about sustainable technology. So we've run workshops with maker fairs in places like New York and Detroit. We've trained youth in London, in the UK actually, and France. And I think, from our perspective, I think the key to that, particularly in areas that might not have sort of same context as Manila or some of the sort of more remote areas, is to educate and empower the youth to help sort of bring that sense of urgency and action through that channel. Because the reality is, we're perfectly happy to go to places that have actually reached out to us within places like the United States, who you would think would never have these sort of energy needs, but they've come to us and say, we've got Native American populations who are living without light. We've got people who are living in urban, I don't know if it's called urban wastelands, but basically areas that have not good access to healthy food, or they can't afford electricity, and we're more than happy to help wherever we can. But I think from our perspective, what we thought is, in order to sort of push forward the agenda, it's through working with and training these communities.
And I'll try and ask, for the developed world, or the developed cities, the ones who've got Melbourne and London and so on, there's a certain amount you can do in terms of putting solar on the roof, a certain amount of self-generation you can do. It's all about energy efficiency. It's actually all about trying to reduce the demand, because all of that housing stock is very poor relative to best practice. And in my house in London, I've done a complete retrofit, cut the energy use by 70%. I've got solar, I've got a fuel cell, I've got one of everything. Anybody wants to come and see the most advanced energy house in London, just let me know. But it was very expensive. But actually a decent payback. But that's got to be the approach, I think, in those places. And then I think so. Final question, and then we'll have to wrap up.
This is Ashwin. I come from India, from the western side of India. About very close to our college, we have two big dams, which store a lot of water. We get very heavy rainfall. Ironically, the villages around the dam cannot access that water. These dams were interestingly built only for generating power and not for irrigating crops. And to this day, 60 years after independence, all that power is being transported 250 kilometers away from where that resource is created. So neither the water nor the electricity generated in that region is available to the local people or the local communities. Now the reason why I'm talking about water is I see the same or similar story being repeated with energy as well as renewable energy. And I think my question would be more for Nauman. Just wanted to know if there is any data which indicates how much of the wind energy was generated in previously areas which previously didn't have any energy, any electricity, and how much of that wind energy is now available to the local people at an affordable price. And in cases where you put a 100-kilometer grid to to connect your windmill farms so that it is grid connected, where does that energy go? I mean, is it possible that all this nice renewable energy being generated in big installations ends up being consumed by companies or industry, and the people who are in the dark continue to be in the dark and get band-aid fixes like solar lanterns or I don't mean to reduce or demean the importance of these solutions at all, but it seems like pocket change compared to the big game here.
No, do you want to respond?
Yeah, it's a difficult question.
It's an incredibly on-the-money question in terms of because otherwise we're just replacing one form of injustice with another form of injustice. So do you want to respond to that?
Agreed. First of all, there's a difference between demand and the production. So basically, like for example, in India, if you take it as an example, the demand is much higher than the production of electricity. India, Pakistan is the same. So when we produce electricity through renewables, it is basically to bridge this difference between the demand and the supply of energy. It's not electrification, and the electrification factor is not part of what we do. But now we are trying, because we know that, like for example in Kenya with the transmission line, okay, it's a high voltage transmission line. It's not a transmission line on 11 kV or on 460 volt where you can use basically to the houses. Yes, this is an issue. We had, for example, in Jordan, in Tafila, when I was there, many of the local communities were asking me where this electricity is going. Are we getting benefit, or we will be paying less because this is free? You know, wind is there. The answer is very difficult. No, it's not, because there is a big difference between demand and what is produced, and we are trying to bridge this. Now, what we try to do in order to help the community where we build these wind farms is to engage them in the construction process, for example. So for Tafila, most of the contractors, most of the workers in the construction was from the area, which is a poor area in Jordan. Also, wind and solar needs needs operation and maintenance for 20 years. And we engage the local community from the area where the wind farm is installed to work with us for 20 years to operate and maintain these wind farms. So this is what we can basically do. Being a DISCO, we are not a distribution electricity distribution company. We cannot do that, but we try our best to serve the communities around, because seeing a big thing and then they are not getting anything is not fair. I agree.
In fact, in Australia, there is a medical condition which has been noticed. It's called wind turbine syndrome, where people who live near to wind turbines find that they become ill because of the wind turbine. And the interesting thing about it is that there's only one known cure, and that is actually financial participation in the benefits of the wind farm, which funnily enough, has a 100% record in eliminating any hint of wind turbine syndrome. So my point, I'm making a joke, but it is that as long as the benefits, they may not be electrical benefits, they may be financial benefits or job benefits, as long as the local community is benefiting, and it's the same in the UK. If somebody tries to build a wind farm and the community doesn't benefit, guess what? They're never going to get permission. Never going to get permission.
Just one point.
And if you can also, we are unfortunately almost out of time, so finish off, give us a final thought and help close the discussion.
That question is very good. If communities are being neglected, and you're building a wind farm, and the power is going to bypass those communities, just call us and supply solar lanterns to those people.
Yeah.
I don't that. Thank you all very much for participation here, for the time you spent with us. and also for all of those of you who've been involved in the Zayed Future Energy Prize process in any way. As you heard, the value of your contribution goes up with the square of the participants. So go out there and bring in more people, tell people about what the great team is doing, the goals of the prize, the legacy of Sheikh Zayed, and so on, because it's making a very, very substantial difference. Thank you.